All right. Happy Thursday. It is August 24th, and we're going to do a little rundown for development tasks needed for Backdrop CMS. General announcements, as usual, Calabox now has beta 4, looks like it's out. It is a local development environment with native backdrop support, so if you're looking for something to run sites on your local machine with, you can give Calabox a try. If you'd like to make a donation to Backdrop CMS, you can do it at our contribute page on backdropcms.org. And for $25, you get a thank you t-shirt, and for $50, you get a thank you hoodie. If you are already a Backdrop contributor, you've already earned a free t-shirt, so you can send an email to info@backdropcms.org and we'll send you one. We are running out of sizes, but we should be getting more shortly. They'll be here by BADCamp, so keep your eyes open for that. Free Phpstorm licenses are also available to Backdrop Contrib developers. So if you're a member of the Contrib group on GitHub, you can send an email to info@backdropcms.org and we'll send you a license key. All right, so I have no announcements. Does anyone else at the PMC have announcements for anyone to make this week? No. Okay. Infrastructure tasks. Nate, do you want to take these away?
Yeah. Okay, so there's not, well, okay, there are some infrastructure items for sure. Okay, so the first item on here is Packager. Project Packager, we have a security enhancement we are hoping to implement, but right now it's just an idea that we would use an MD5 checksum on the server side and include that information in the Packager XML feed so that we could tell, or JSON feed, so that we could confirm that the package that was delivered to a site that is installing a module is confirmed as being the same MD5 checksum as the package that they expect. Yeah, and thanks for adding, and that is issue 1992. We don't have any implementation on that yet. It's just an idea that would help increase the security of the built-in project installer. Yes, there is a bug with installing themes. It's not actually just themes. It's actually all new projects since we fixed the packager. I think we actually we fixed one thing and broke something else in typical fashion. So the packager is working right now to add zip files to the GitHub releases, but when the release nodes are created on backdropcms.org, they're pointing at the original source code package on GitHub, not the packaged zip file that we created. And that's causing all kinds of mayhem. Things like the installer can't install new projects that have been packaged in this way. And also it's likely, we have another item down here further in the agenda, that drush up also, like using drush up to update a package, also seems to have the same issue. Oddly, it doesn't seem like Backdrop itself had this problem, which I'm not quite sure why that is. But when we made 1.4.4, it doesn't seem like it had that same problem. So
also, modules seem to install just fine through Project Browser.
Only if they haven't had a new release in the last month, basically. Okay. So if you make a new release, the new release won't work. But the good thing is that we can just fix all of this with a SQL query to fix all the existing data. And then obviously we need to fix it so that new items that come in also don't have this problem.
Okay.
The Backdrop 1.4.4 release was broken through drush, and I did some stuff to fix that. I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not, but it's working for at least 1.4.4. I'll have to check it.
Okay.
Going forward.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm working on fixing that actually right now. So hopefully later today that will all be put away. Okay, let's see. More infrastructure items. Testing infrastructure. We would like to add JavaScript-based testing at some points. I was just looking for an issue. I don't think we have even an issue for this yet, but there's but there is an item on Drupal.org where they added JavaScript-based testing to Drupal 8. Simple test is largely the same between Drupal 7 and Drupal 8, so there's a good possibility that we will be able to port similar implementation. That it's basically all still simple test driven, but they added new methods and a new base class to make it so that it becomes a Phantom.js driven web browser that does the testing instead of being curl based. Those tests are like tremendously slower, so we probably wouldn't switch. We definitely wouldn't switch all of our existing tests over to it. But whenever we needed JavaScript level testing, we could make a specific test case that uses that base class that uses Phantom.js browser instead to render all the HTML pages and then actually do the testing. Let's see. Another item that is on our wish list, automatic updates. As part of our commitment to affordability, we think that if we were able to expand our ability to not just install and detect when updates are needed, but if we could automatically update sites specifically for security releases, at least initially, and probably initially just for core and then later for contrib, we think that that would go a long ways towards lowering the overhead and maintaining a Backdrop website. There's a lot of problems and a lot of technical challenges with that, but right now we are just discussing it in an emit issue at issue 2024. So there's not actually any implementation at this point. It's all just ideas of how and why and when we're going to manage to do such a thing. Let's see. There's an item in here for Backdrop CMS on Pantheon /drush/updates. I didn't add this item to the agenda. Jeff, is this something that you added or Jen?
Yeah, it was me. So we have a working test of Pantheon using local drush. So if you put a drush install in your Backdrop root in a drush directory with the drush code in there and the drush executable in there, so drush, you can actually execute drush commands against the Pantheon environment with Terminus or their dashboard. So that's very promising. I think the next steps are to get some other people to test that besides myself, and maybe some coordination with Pantheon on what they need from us in order to get onto their dashboard to spin up Backdrop CMS as an option.
Cool. Yeah, is that do you think that this would fix the run update.php automatically checkbox?
I don't see why it wouldn't, and Greg Anderson seems to agree with that. I see have some Pantheon sites. It can't be an existing Pantheon site. I think you have to make a new instance of the Backdrop site because at some point in the recent past, they have started spinning up new sites with PHP 5.5, where old instances of Backdrop were being spun up with PHP 5.3. And our drush is completely incompatible with 5.3. So it would have to be a new instance or a relatively new. And another problem that we might have that we need to test against is when you spin up that new site, it comes with some version of drush, and if it's not drush 8, you have to issue a terminus command to get it to be drush 8. So we might need some coordination there. Greg thinks that when we spin it up, new things by default should be drush 8. I'd like to test that too, because in my test instance, I had to run the terminus command to specifically say I wanted drush 8. And then
so I think there's another thing. I added a bullet to the bottom of this list where Greg also mentioned that there's a way that we can force all new repositories from our upstream to use PHP 7 by adding a pantheon.yaml file in there. And so I was thinking maybe we should do that at the same time. Like we can force the version of PHP, we can add drush, and then that way we're sure that our version of drush will work on the version of PHP that we get. But I was confused about how to actually go about testing that. Like should we fire up a new site and then point the upstream repository at like our fork of Backdrop Pantheon that contains the YAML file and the like how do you get a new Pantheon instance when the thing that you want doesn't exist yet?
Sure. I made a PR against our Pantheon upstream repo that has all the necessary config for drush. It doesn't have the YAML file, but I can put that in pretty quickly. The YAML file doesn't allow you to specify the drush version. It does allow you to specify the PHP version, but that's okay. We can put it in there anyways. So what would be required for you to test it would be to merge that PR.
But I don't want to merge it until we test it. So how do you test it?
Sure. Okay. So what I did to test. Okay, I'll write down my steps so that other people can replicate those.
Okay, that would be great.
I
saw that too, where I was like, if we just merged it, I'm like, but what if everything explodes and then like all of the Pantheon sites that people are trying to fire up like aren't going to work until we get it? I guess we could revert. Like there probably aren't that many people that's going to push the button between like push or revert. It would just be cleaner not to, especially if we're going to be running into this problem in the future, like figuring out how you tested it so I could test it. You know, so everyone can test it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. But yeah, that sounds super cool. I'm really excited about getting Drush and Pantheon working because that means the checkbox will work to run updates. All the checkbox does is run a bunch of command line commands, and so if it's already set up to use the right version of Drush, then running Drush up should work on a Backdrop site if we're using Backdrop's Drush command. So that in theory should work, but I'd like to test it. And then once we get that tested, we can ask Greg or Matt to switch the Drush, the Backdrop Pantheon instance from being, right now it's like owned by my company. We can make it a public upstream for anyone to use, and then it'll appear when anybody installs it. So yeah, I think that sounds super exciting that we're really close. I also think that might warrant a blog post if anyone is interested in writing up that. I don't know, Jeff, you did the most work on it, but I don't know if you have any time to have a celebration blog post. That could be fun.
I prefer to work on code.
Fair enough. Maybe we can get to the PR people of Pantheon to write about it too. We'll see. Okay, is there anything else we haven't talked about on the Drush Pantheon thing? I kind of interrupted you there to talk about PHP 7. No.
Yeah, there's some more in here about the packager and Drush, but I think we covered that earlier.
The other thing with Drush, I was working on, this is not Pantheon, but just Drush. I was working on Drush Enable, and Nate was working on SQL Sanitize. I think we're running into a namespace collision problem again. I don't know why, because they are namespaced as the callback functions are backdrop underscore command something. They're not drush underscore command something. But even though SQL Sanitize works for backdrop, if you go to a Drupal 7 site and run that command, it calls the backdrop version and fails on the Drupal 7 site.
I noticed something similar where Drush DL won't work on a Drupal 7 site anymore. It thinks it's backdrop, and it has a hard time with that. And the same with Drush N. Like, there were a bunch of things that were getting all confused as to like it thought it was backdrop when it was actually Drupal.
Definitely Drush Enable. I haven't experienced it with Drush DL, but I'll have to check. I can check that though. But some sort of problem there with namespacing.
Take advantage of the silence to say something.
Go ahead.
If we have so many collisions with Drush, and I'm not using it, I'm just saying, why don't we prepend a B in front of our commands? Like, instead of DL, it's going to be Drush B DL, or something like that, for all of them.
So the big thing for me is that I want the commands to be identical regardless of which site I'm on. Like I want to be able to be like, if it's Drupal site, I can do a drush DL, or if it's Backdrop site, I can do drush DL, and I don't have to remember what site I'm on or remember what the other commands are. I don't know like how big a training change that is for developers. If it's just add a B, that seems really straightforward. But I did think that there was some value in having it be exactly the same from one to another.
Yeah, there technically already is a different command, as you noticed, Jen, but that doesn't prevent the problem anyways, because it's a namespace collision with the callback function somehow. And Nate fixed that, but I think, as far as I understand, I went back and read it. As far as I understood, it was just a problem with the callback being drush_command something. And then what Nate did at that time was remove the word drush from all the callbacks, but these callbacks never had the word drush in them. It was always backdrop_command something.
Yeah, we need to look into it. It looks like it might also be that like maybe our identification of like, is this a Drupal site or is it a Backdrop site? Maybe that identification code is messed up, and so it's thinking Backdrop is claiming that it is a Backdrop. The Backdrop boot class is saying this is a Backdrop site when it's not, and that's a possibility that it's detecting incorrectly 777 as being Backdrop.
Maybe the latest version of 777 included a Backdrop.js file.
Even though like other commands work though, like I think if it was the boot class, like any command you run would accidentally pick up the Backdrop boot class and.
Right. Well,
That's
it's just a guess. I haven't tried it because Jen's saying that not only is drush enable having this problem, but drush DL is also, and it's like, well, if all the commands are doing it.
Well, it wasn't all the commands. I definitely had like drush cache clear and like there are a bunch like drush register rebuild, which you couldn't do for Backdrop. Like those would all still work, but it was just like every now and then I'd be like, I have to go and like manually copy this module, or I have to go and manually enable it, where it would catch me off guard, where it's like every now and then it just wouldn't. So I don't think it's the boot class.
Okay. Well, let's continue this in the drush issue queue. That issue number 7 looks like it's a good place for us to try to figure this one out.
All right, anything else on drush, or should we move on to the website?
Drush DL works for me.
Okay. I'll try it again. It could have also, maybe I was in the wrong directory or something. Who knows? Okay, well, how about I talk about the website real quick? There's things I need to test, like single sign-on. We have a showcase content type. I think we even have some content in it. We need to have a layout built that matches our designs, and it's going to be kind of a crazy layout because it's got to dynamically determine how many values are provided for which size of image. So like if we have 4 desktop screenshots and no mobile ones, the layout will need to be a little different than if there are 4 mobile ones and no desktop ones. So if anyone is super interested in figuring out that kind of problem, that could be kind of interesting. The support section is coming along. We have some fantastic documentation. I started reading some of the documentation last week. Oh my goodness, there's so much amazing documentation. I'm not really sure how it should be organized. Like I was trying to find a top-level link to throw it into the main menu, but I didn't know which one the top-level link should be. So I don't know if you know Clonos, like this is the page that should be on the top. If it should be the like quick start guide page, or if it should be like the top level of the not quick start guide. I don't know. I noticed there's also a bunch of Google Docs. Maybe I should just go read the Google Docs and that would be clear, but I don't know if you have any thoughts as to...
I know I promised to go over the documentation and I need to add screenshots. We did a quick 13 viewer show for Vangelis last week. And I had to sort of like, he was interested in learning about how layouts work, so I went through the layout documentation. it was helpful, sort of like a guide of what I should go through. But I have no comments with regards to rearranging things, or I'll have to find some time to just.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like it's all in a book, and it's all like one page after the other, which is good. But I don't know where it starts. Like, I don't know if it's in the right order. I don't know if it's supposed to be in any particular order, or if it's just like topic pages. I think Duck Wilmot has a plan, so maybe I should just ask him in the issue queue what, like, if I was going to add a link into the menu, what would he see would be the top level link? I don't know.
Eventually, there's going to be an index, the similar way that the Drupal.org documentation has on the right side.
Yeah.
There will be an index, and at some point, I know we filed an issue about this as well. We were looking at a freeware, at an open source JS library that sort of like goes through the page and finds the headings and auto creates the index and it updates it. So I know there's a plan definitely to have an index so that people know where they're at. I know that.
Okay. I'll open an issue then and find out what it is, because if maybe we're not close enough to add it then, if that's just not there yet. But I looked at it and I was just like, whoa, there's obviously a bigger plan here that I'm aware of, so I'm just going to leave this alone. And then I moved on to something else. Speaking of something else, I didn't add it into the agenda, but Jeff did all this amazing work to get download counts for modules appearing on backdropcms.org. So now if you go to any project page, like I'm going to look at Project Honeypot. I know that one works. In the right sidebar, I've now added more of the things that were on our original design comp. I'm going to just throw this link into the Hangout chat. So you now have like the version number at the top with a link to see the rest of the versions instead of having the versions tab going across the top of the page, which was a little bit confusing. And then there's the download count, so the number of people that have downloaded this module either from this page or from GitHub. That's the count of the actual downloads from GitHub, which is where our links point. The number of active installs, the number of sites that are currently reporting to install this module, and then all of the GitHub information like the project page, the issue queue, the documentation, and the clone URL. So hopefully people will be able to have easier access to actually obtaining the module rather than just using the download button, like if they wanted to look at the issue queue or download or clone it or whatever. All of that information is here now, in addition to download count and project usage statistics. So I think this is a big step in the right way, in the right direction in terms of like getting us closer to what we actually wanted these pages to look like. I haven't actually looked at the backdrop page, but I did make it the same for. Oh yeah, that's working too, I guess. Could use a little cleanup. I did make it work for modules, themes, and layouts, but I didn't actually look at backdrop. But it looks like it's there. It's just not pretty, so I can clean that up today. But anyway, I thought that was fantastic. I saw Jeff did all this amazing work, and I'm like, I really want to leverage that like right now. And so last Thursday, I spent some time fixing this up. Wow, do we really have 6,000 downloads of backdrop? That's fantastic. Good job, guys. I don't know if that counts like Git clones of like Pantheon backdrop. No, it's just straight downloads. So that's pretty good. It does not count people using it on Pantheon. Active installs would though if they'd launched their site. So that's exciting. Back to the website. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff we still need to work on. Can I close this usage statistics visible issue? 243. I don't know. We have a little bit more cleanup to do on the find pages. All of these numbers, like downloads and usage statistics, are available on the project page, but there isn't views support for some of them yet. So the things we do have view support for, we can add. Things we don't, we can't. And then we need to write that integration first, and then we can get that done. Event listing, service provider listing. Oh, I think I spent some time working on some of these. Oh, yeah. So I spent some time working on the service provider listing to try and add a search field, but then I realized that we have this bug in views where we can't get exposed filters to appear in a block display. They only appear on page displays because our views was not the content pane display from views module. It was the block display from views module, and views module never worked correctly in Drupal 7 either. So I think that might be a quick fix if somebody wants to grab the views content pane display and compare it to our views block display and make sure we add in all of the stuff that's missing, like context and contextual filters and exposed filters and all that. But we can't fix the service provider listing or the events listing or any of the listings on backdropcms.org until we fix Backdrop itself. So it's been a little slow going. The other thing is converting the front page to a view. There's no rush on that. I know, Colonos, you've got that on your plate too, but it's fine as it is now. At some point, we'd like to make those more detailed, but whenever, it's totally fine. I think documentation is actually more important. So, yeah, whenever. No rush. We don't even need to talk about that in this meeting if that's making you uncomfortable.
Yeah, no news there. No update.
Okay. All right. Let's turn it over to Jeff for updates on Backdrop CMS itself.
1.44 is released. Woo! We don't have anything listed other than we have moved our outstanding issues to come up in 1.4.5 as needed. And good job on 1.4.4, everyone. Thanks. Nate, you want to take over for important bug fixes?
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we started doing this a little while ago that we had like some major bugs in 1.4, so we wanted to call out a special section for major bugs that needed to be fixed as soon as possible. And we knocked off 3 of them in 1.4.4, which is great. But we have this long-standing issue, probably our longest-standing major issue, which is issue 1373, which is images get deleted on cron jobs on non-entity contents, things like custom blocks or views or other places where you have a rich text editor available that allows you to do uploading, but doesn't actually save those images as permanent after the uploading is completed. So we have some ideas on that, and there's been some work Jeff has posted that needs review. I've been trying to get to this for so long, but there's just always something that is just like, you know, there's just lots of lots of things to do. Yeah, we could use some more eyeballs on that, on the approach that we have so far, as well as any brainstorming on alternative approaches. We talk about this most every week, so I don't think I'm going to recap again this week. You can read up on the issue 1373. We need some help there. Okay, that's it for the critical bug fixes. The next item on the agenda is the 1.5 release, which is coming right up. That is in 3 weeks, which is kind of terrifying because we've got a lot of things to do. And at this point, I've been talking with Jen about potentially starting to look at alternatives and what we can do to make this release a success. That might involve some compromises. But let's go through the items here, and we can talk about each one of them. So Drupal 7.50 was released about a month ago, and Drupal started doing this pseudo-semantic versioning thing, starting with 7.50. They jumped from like 43 or something like that to 7.50, and their policy going forward is that every 6 months, Drupal 7 is going to jump 50 version numbers. So the next version of Drupal 7 that is a feature release will be 7.100, as I understand it, which is kind of crazy, but whatever. Anyway, so 7.50 was a feature release for Drupal 7, the first following this new paradigm, and they added a bunch of new features as well as bug fixes. And so a lot of the things that are in 7.50, the bug fixes, we've already been splitting off, and a bunch of them were included in 1.4.4. But some of the items in 7.50 are features, like the full UTF-8 character support, which allows emojis, for example, to be stored in the database. And so we've got, I did some work on this actually in issue 884 that is pretty well ready to go, although I've been working with the Drupal 7 maintainer that did the drush commands, and we're making some mutual improvements and discoveries around the way that we handle some edge cases like multiple databases and database table prefixes and things like that. So anyway, that's almost certainly ready for 1.5.0. So that'll be in there, which would be great because I know we've wanted emoji support since WordPress came out with it. Oh gosh, I don't know, almost a year ago. Let's see, but we have other items in that issue, the 7.50 cross-porting issue, which is issue 2013, that also will probably be included in 1.5.0, assuming that the patch gets turned into a pull request against Backdrop before a release date. So there's a bunch of items in there. If they're bug fixes, we'll put them into 1.4.5. If they're features, we'll put them into 1.5.0. Yeah, okay, the next item on the features for 1.5.0, and I've been saying this since we started this release, that probably the most important thing is getting a reference solution in core. And yeah, Jen just posted this a minute ago, and this is one of the compromises that I've been thinking about, and this does definitely fall into the crazy idea category, is that reference module hasn't seen a whole ton of work since it started like 3 months ago. And so we're in this uncomfortable position where we haven't figured out an upgrade path for reference module. Its UI isn't finished. We have technical problems that haven't been solved yet. It's not in a really great place. And so as Jen just posted to that issue, she had this proposal that that we not put reference module, the new module, into core, but instead included the existing reference modules, which are separate, the user reference module and node reference module, into core, which would save us from an upgrade path because those modules already have upgrade paths. Well, basically there is no upgrade path because they just work. The data is exactly the same between Drupal 7 and Backdrop. And we wouldn't need to worry about deprecating term reference, which is in core, which would be replaced by a universal reference module. Yeah, it is crazy, especially at this point in the cycle, but I do think it's worth discussion. Just to get an initial feedback, we should post this to the issue as well, but anybody have any immediate thoughts on that crazy idea?
I just want to add one more thing too, is that this references module, the one that we're now considering adding, this was the standard in Drupal 6, right? And entity reference was the standard in Drupal 7 when everything went all entity crazy. And if you think about like Backdrop's philosophy, like we are about less abstraction and less entity crazy stuff. And so even though entity reference is kind of the standard for Drupal 7, I'm wondering if maybe references might be more of the standard for Backdrop's audience, especially if we're thinking about like simplifying. And if we end up wanting to go in the entity reference direction in the future, we can always make that decision at 2.0, where we have we'll have time to look at what people liked and didn't like about using the in-core solution, and we can move it one direction or the other based on how that goes. So I think it meets our immediate need of like we need a reference module solution in core, but it also like meets our need of like not wanting to change very much because we like backwards compatibility, and it allows us the opportunity to go whichever direction we want in the future. If we want less abstraction in the future, we can go that way from here very easily. If we want more abstraction in the future, we can rewrite this to be a universal entity reference or however we want to handle it. So I think it solves our immediate need, even though it is a little bit of a sacrifice, with the least amount of work, and it leaves the door open for any option in the future. So does anyone have any like knee-jerk reactions to this, like, no, or yes.
I'd like to say something. Yeah, is there, like, if a website jumps from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7 and they were using references and they decide to go with entity reference, is there an upgrade path or migration path? No. Then, all right, it justifies us if we jump to entity reference in Backdrop tool because we do API changes there. But still, it's kind of breaking functionality.
Yeah, so one particular solution to that is that reference module, the module that Mike has been working on that is in contrib, could potentially handle the upgrade path for people that were using entity reference previously. And so if you were using entity reference, then you could upgrade to reference module. That would be also a contrib module. But if you were using user reference or node reference module, then those would be provided by core, and the upgrade path would be provided by it. So basically, if you had used what had been part of CCK ages ago, then that would have been upgraded from 6 to 7 and then 7 to Backdrop. But if you used entity reference, a contrib solution in Drupal 7, then you could use the reference module, a contrib module in Backdrop.
And there's also no reason we couldn't have a module that took you from entity reference in 7 to references in Backdrop. It would just be a contrib solution that's like, oh, do you want to go from contrib to core? Here's a module that just provides that upgrade path, which would be like a downgrade path. But it's possible to get your data from one to the other.
Okay, sorry, I'm compiling a link for this next item on the agenda. Yeah, let's post our feedback to the issue because I think that it would be best if we have that recorded in a searchable central location rather than during this call, especially since we just kind of sprung it on everybody. Anyway, it's a plausible idea, and we could actually get it done for 1.5.0 if we took that approach. Either that or reference module needs to have an enormous amount of effort put into it in a short amount of time. Or the alternative is, of course, that we nix it from being in 1.5.0 and we postpone it to the next minor release. So we have 3 options. Put in a whole bunch of effort, use node and user reference module instead, or postpone it. So those are our choose your own adventure options. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the new front-end theme in core, which is issue 1361. This one, let's see, we have Wes is giving an update. Do you want to say anything about pieces?
Got a lot of progress this weekend and been working on it most of today. I think it's looking really good. There are some issues I've marked as needs help. Hold on. So there's the cannot install, which might be a larger Backdrop issue where some people aren't able to install basis from the installer module. And then I marked a couple needs review. There, like Klonos and some other people have given me some feedback, and I've pushed up something for them to review. And other than that, oh, and there's a number of things that I'm finding out are either an issue in core, or I'd like to adjust how it's handled in core. And so I'm getting a bunch of issues there. So for instance, the table drag stuff, I did something novel with reorderable tables, but it broke sticky header. Not because sticky headerness had a bug, but it wasn't expecting someone to do what I did, which is totally valid. It's just unexpected. So I'm putting in some tickets and pull requests on things like that. But yeah, feeling like it's pretty much ready, and I'm thinking I need to make a branch or something where it's actually in core. Right now, I'm just developing with it in like the themes directory right off the root. So putting it in core themes and then looking into how we flip the switch on what's the default theme and all that fun stuff. So we'll probably start looking at that soon. And I was thinking about keeping Basis around as a contrib theme as well, so that I could try some things out in a place. But I don't know if that's sane or not. But it just kind of like if I wanted to do something weird, maybe there's a place for me to do that that's not core, basically. But I don't even necessarily have a use case for that right now. Like, I guess color module support might be one of those things, or something along those lines. And maybe I'd have to change the name to like Basis Contrib or something. But anyway, that was kind of meandering. I think that's it though. To that.
Cool. Yeah, this is definitely the thing that's at least I'm hoping to take a look at first. That we should get Basis into core pretty much as soon as possible, because it was almost ready for 1.4, and we pushed it. And so as far as features go that are nearly there, Basis is the closest and one of the highest impact. So it's going to get some of my attention in the very near future, and I'll start posting some more feedback to try to start moving this forward. I posted to the issue, which is issue 1361, the Put Basis in Core issue, that's just this week Jen Simmons posted an incredible summary of her experience getting Bartik into Drupal core and what goals she had with making a core theme back then for Drupal 7, because they're looking at adding a new core theme into the next version of Drupal 8, and discussing what purposes a core theme should have. And I could read out the bullet point version of it, but it's really so good you kind of need to read the entire thing in order to get a good sense of some of the ideas that she had. The good news is that what we've done with Basis is largely compatible with everything that she's described. So, so I think that we will continue to steer the ship forward. But it is great to go back and give that a read just to get an idea of, maybe we can make some slight adjustments. I'm not sure that we do, but go through a round of feedback based on those ideas and see if we have met all of the goals that she has described with why and how we should make a new core theme.
Nice. I actually just submitted a talk for Bad Camp about replacing Bartik and Backdrop. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's highly relevant. Okay. Yeah, there's some other items that have spun off of the core theme issue 1905, which is a revamp for color module, and a theme settings revamp, which is issue 1949. Both of those likely to get pushed to the next release. But we'll see as things come together if that happens in 1.5. That seems pretty unlikely. Okay, new default homepage layout is issue 1042. The basics of this is kind of simple, but also has some caveats to it. We basically just want to make a homepage layout that is at /front or something. But we've had some discussions about maybe the homepage layout would end up being at /node to make this totally straightforward, but then we would have to keep using the terrible path /node. So we have some discussion that needs to be done around that, and please post to that issue 1042. Some sub-issue items in this one, we'd like to add a hero or image slider or something up at the top of the homepage layout, and that's been spun off into a separate issue at 1152. And then obviously we'll need to combine the ability to have a homepage, or the ability to have a slider/hero block with the adding it to the homepage layout at some point. Yeah, and some discussion. Oh, it looks like that /node versus /front has been given its own issue as well at issue 2001. All right, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to keep kind of cruising through these. The last item we've got here is a feature for 1.5 is improving the rich text editor. There's a meta issue at issue 1087 that has some items that we could tackle for 1.5, things like drag and drop uploads or copy paste uploads, potentially. Fixing the spell checker, Jen added that just this past week. And then there's also several bugs in the CK editor implementation, like the anchor tag being broken, that if we fix those, we can push that out into the next bug fix release. It doesn't need to wait till 1.5. And if we can get a couple of these rich text editor improvements in, that would be like, I hate to say it, but would be easily marketable. That would be a big win as far as pushing out features that are really impressive, but don't take a lot of effort. And I know that we actually had some work regarding copy paste and drag and drop uploads in a previous pull request that had been bundled all together. One of our contributors kept putting it together with upgrade CK editor to the latest release. He also included some new plugins that had these capabilities, but that was too much all in one pull request. So we split out just the upgrade into the current pull request, which is the latest version of CK editor, which we have right now. But we could probably go back to his original pull request and start looking at those additional plugins that he created or just enabled in CK editor and re-implement them as features in 1.5. Okay, then there's some other issues that are slated for 1.5. You can find them in the GitHub issue tracker by looking at the 1.5 milestone. As always, we have user experience and developer experience problems that we're always trying to make constant improvements to Backdrop all the time. You can find those issues by searching for UX and DX square brackets at the beginning of issues. All right, the next section we've got here is the community growth section. Gregory, do you have the numbers?
Yes, I do. I just don't have edit permissions for the agenda, so someone has to fill them in. I'll read them from the other document. So not much change. We have 307 projects on for Backdrop CMS on GitHub. That's +1 since last week. 214 projects with official releases, so no changes. I guess that's because the thing is broken, the packager. 338 releases on backdropcms.org. That's another 4. 55 total Backdrop contributors, which is +1 since last week, and the applications has that dropped -1 to 13. So we had no new actually. And then we have 2 more organization profiles on backdropcms.org and 5 more total user accounts on backdropcms.org, which brings them to 338.
Yay, that's excellent. Yeah, I saw the new contributor application came through. Thank you for walking through that process with that new contributor. I'm really excited. Like, new contributors are so important, and so it's fantastic when they get given.
The organization profiles are 26. It's +2, by the way. So. Thanks.
Excellent. I'm also adding you to the list of people that have access to the.
Oh, I used to. Just today. It's just this. For the previous weeks, I used to have access. For some reason today, I don't know why.
Huh.
It's because Google changed the way their documents work. When you used to say create a document, we'd give you an option to like add all the same collaborators, and they changed that. So now it just creates a new document, and then you have to like manually add them. So, sorry, I forgot to do that.
No worries.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Gregory. Next item is news and announcements. Jen?
Ta-da. All right, so if anyone has any ideas for the blog, we could use a blog post. If not, there is a Drupal Camp LA this weekend that Nate and I are going to attend, and next week we'll probably be able to do a write-up on that, so we can at least put something in there. Newsletter, I have a draft of the newsletter that I need to review. Backdrop 1.4 is out, so it needs to go out. I'm going to hopefully try and get it to go out tomorrow morning. It'll just be kind of a summary of everything new that happened in 1.4 with some exciting wording around that. And then we've got a bunch of other exciting stuff coming up on the horizon. We just talked about a lot of it in our outreach meeting. If you want to review the notes from that, they are in the agendas directory, I guess. There's an agenda for today's meeting where I put all the notes. But most excitingly, Backdrop has a summit at BadCamp in October, and we're looking for speakers. So if anyone has anything that they want to share, they're going to be at BadCamp. They want to come to the Backdrop Summit. We're looking for 15-minute lightning sessions. And that's because we've moved all of our training material out of the summit day, because we might also be having a Backdrop training, which will also be really exciting. So I've got a couple of people who own Backdrop sites coming to do case studies on their sites, which we couldn't do last year because there was only like one person that had a Backdrop site. So if anyone knows anyone who owns a Backdrop site or has built a Backdrop site or wants to show off a Backdrop site, definitely let us know. We're looking for more speakers. Same thing is true if you have more technical things you want to share, whether it's how to make a core theme for Backdrop, or how to make Backdrop work with Josh, or how to make Backdrop work on Pantheon, or anything like that. I think it'll be super exciting to include that. We do have the folks from Calabox coming to do a demo on Calabox, which will be really fun. So any good ideas for 15-minute topics of either something you want to share if you're going to be there, or something you want to see if you're going to be attending, or something you think someone should talk about if you're not attending but care passionately about these things. And we're trying to get a schedule together, because the BadCamp session schedule will be up, I think, in about a week. And so it would be great to have a Backdrop Summit schedule too, so since everyone's on the site, we'll let them know what's going on. So that's all I have on news and announcements. Today's Backdrop Day, so after this meeting we'll be hanging out in the GitHub issue queue and probably on Gitter, working on some of the things we talked about today. There are a list of other upcoming events on the website if you're interested in things other than LA Drupal Camp, which is this weekend, and BadCamp, which is later in the fall. And there are 2 books available for Backdrop, Beginning Backdrop CMS and Migrating from Drupal to Backdrop. Both are available on Apress and Amazon. And I think that's it for today. Does anyone have anything else we should talk about?
Real quick question for Wes is left. I don't know if you guys know, just real quick, each time that Wes does some work and I install and try to test bases, I have in mind the mockups with the beautiful blue colors and everything, the screens and everything, and it doesn't look like that. So I understand that the work underlying there is to get the markup right and to make it easier to sub-theme the basis thing. But out of the box, are we planning to have something pretty? That's the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably a lot of interfaces that haven't had scrutiny yet. And if you could just kind of bookmark those, then we can kind of go through and clean them up a little bit.
Yeah, I also think a large part of the basis branding and appearance is highly dependent upon that hero block, because that's the large item of emphasis. And also the homepage layout. The structure of like the 3 columns down at the bottom for like recent posts or something like that. So basis is, I know it's a little bit tough because out of the box you don't have any content. So having it look good without content is a real trick. We need to figure out some some way, probably through that hero block, to provide some appearance without having a whole lot of content, basically. I know we also have like the welcome node. I don't think that has been completed yet either. You know, the like sample create a node 1 out of the box that is just like, hey, welcome to your Backdrop website. Edit this node. That might also help because then at least you would have one piece of content rather than having nothing at all.
Yeah, that broke a bunch of tests.
Yeah, I bet. Because all the tests probably, like, they create a node and they expect it to be node 1, right? Because, yeah.
We can make it node 0.
that might break even more things.
I like the way you think, Clonos.
One thing too, I don't know who put this in the agenda, but we wanted to mention that Calamuna has this fantastic blog post about Backdrop. I think they actually have 2, but this is the best one, or the most recent one, I guess. It's called Finding Your Spirit Animal, and it's from this guy named John. I think his last name is Ule. I don't know how to pronounce it. But he's the one who's going to be doing the case study on Backdrop at BadCamp. But the blog post is on Calamuna, blog.calamuna.com. It's called Finding Your Spirit Animal with Backdrop. It's the top post. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely say give it a read. I think we've tweeted about it several times, but if anyone else wants to tweet about it, that would be great too. So thanks, Calamuna, for using Backdrop, and I'm really glad you guys like it. Does anyone have anything else? Okay, I think my dog needs a walk. But I will see you guys on GitHub, and thanks for attending the meetings today, and definitely weigh in about what you think about references module versus reference module, because I think that's something we're going to need to make a decision on here in the next week. All right, talk to you guys in the issue queue.
All right, thanks everybody.